Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're talking about dealing with rejection, and we're going to kind of link in last week's video a little bit to it. I think it's going to be really useful because we deal with rejection on a daily basis, whether it's big or small. We've got a couple stories that we're going to share today, a couple of examples, and I think this is something we're going to do. This video is going to be part one. We're going to kind of explain the framework of it, and then we're going to go more into depth. We're kind of in the process of reading a book right now called Rejection Proof. And he talks about 100 days of rejection and how he mastered rejection. And so we're gonna have part two kind of going through some of those principles as well. But I'm back with Ruben, super excited to do another video. He's still up in Stewart Island, working away up there, doing some hard physical labor. And so it's awesome to have you back again, Ruben. And awesome. Let's just kick it off with a couple of quick stories. So we're gonna talk about the world trip for a second. And there was a couple of really big rejections that we had. One that we ultimately got a result, a positive result, and the second one we didn't. And the one would have stopped us completely. So it had to do with getting insurance for the trip, okay? And we negotiated with one insurance broker for a long time, many months. And he went out to all the insurance companies, and he kept coming back, and he kept getting no's, basically saying, no, for this world trip, because of the nature of it and stuff like that, we're not going to be able to insure you for it. And
nobody was interested in the risk.
Nobody was interested in doing it and underwriting it. And so we got all these rejections, and we're going, wow, what are we going to do? Like, if we don't get insurance, we're not legally allowed to go on this flight. And it's not, at that point, it wasn't even a price point. It was just simply, no, we're not going to insure it. And eventually we got an answer from him. The price point was ridiculously high. And so we negotiated with a different insurance broker. And ultimately, we were able to get an insurance that was much more affordable, still expensive, but much more affordable. And we got a yes. Okay, so that one was a positive one. We had to negotiate, but we had to deal with a lot of rejection along the way. Basically perseverance, because what's interesting was, and we're going to talk about this, we're going to explore this more in a few minutes, but we're going to talk about one door closing and not necessarily being the last door. So I think a lot of time people have the tendency that if a door gets shut in their face, they either don't deal well with that rejection, and so they just stop pursuing it, or they feel like, you know what, that was a closed door, so it probably means that this was not meant for me, and so I'm going to go on to something else, right? And that a lot of the time is not the case. Okay, there may be certain instances where that is the case, and you should just stop there and go and do something different. But if we had stopped when the people had first said no to us, we wouldn't have done the world trip, and we would have missed out on such a rich opportunity, right? To see the world and just other experiences we had, and
open new doors.
Open new doors for sure. And so we would have missed out on that. And then the other thing is, if we would have stopped with the final, okay, yes, I have a quote for you, and it's this X, we would have said, oh man, that's crazy, it's expensive, but okay, let's go for it. But we pursued harder. We said, no, there has to be a different way. We pursued a different avenue, and we found out that we were able to get something that was much more affordable, right? So that was good. Now, another thing that we negotiated on the trip, and we didn't necessarily start early enough in the negotiations on this, but there was a fuel company, a world fuel company, that was going to be able to provide fuel services for us all the way around the world. And so we were negotiating, because of the nature of the trip and sort of the PR and everything that was going around it, that they would supply the fuel for free for us for the trip. And we negotiated fairly hard with it, back and forth. Ruben was kind of leading the charge on the negotiations, but it wasn't top of priority, and it was just one of the things, many things we were doing. And ultimately we lost that negotiation, and that was a no, and we had to deal with that rejection. And so that was a financial rejection. And so Ruben, why don't you dive in a little bit and talk a little bit about, just kind of open the framework and let people understand there's differences between, like, just simply a financial rejection, like we talked about last week. Hey, can I get a discount? No. Okay, fine. That's one thing. But then getting rejected, you have a quick story to share, I think, getting rejected on something that's very personal, and then the concept of separating rejection from a personal insult to something that's just a reality, and maybe looking at there's another side of the coin as to why that person rejected you. So go ahead and talk about that.
Right. So I think that the core thing about the human being is that nobody intrinsically wants to be rejected.
No.
Nobody wants. If you want to be rejected, obviously not, right?
No.
So it's in our DNA, and we have this defensive mode that we think that if we reject it, is because somebody didn't like me, somebody had an opinion about me that somehow I might get offended with it. You know,
Yeah.
it's so we bring this home very close to our heart. And when I say our heart, I say it on purpose. We have mind and heart, and our heart actually doesn't think. And but this everybody knows what the heart is about. It's more about emotions. So there's emotions on the heart. There's more rational on the brain. It's everything's on our brain. So your life is lived in your brain. You know, if you think everything that you are, Misha, everything I am, is in here.
Yeah.
Nothing else. You know?
Exactly.
It's a perception that we have of the world. It's a perception of our experiences and what we have gone through in our lives. That's why when you are a bit older, the time thing, it seems like time goes faster. Why? Because comparatively to the rest of the time you have lived, it's it's relatively less than what you have lived. So your life is in your brain. So what I'm saying this is, if you process that rejection as personal, it does affect you a lot, and mostly your heart and your brain. So it has a consequence of how you see the world. So for me, it looks it's easy, Misha, but it's not easy. It's extremely hard.
Yeah.
Detach the link to a personal statement about you, a personal opinion when somebody says no, right? I was another day we were here with a young group of good workers, and we were in Campo River, which is nearby, 20 minutes flight from here. We took a day off, do some things here. We had doing hard work here, and then a guy had a really nice dog. One of the our friends here that is on this project, young guy, low 20s, he really likes dogs, right? So he sees the dog coming over, and the dog is amazing. I mean, the dog is really nice. So he's coming over, he sees the dog and says to the owner, "May I pet the dog?" And it's normal. Can I pet the dog? He was nice. He's very polite, right? Can I pet the dog? And the answer was no. And it's a no of no conversation,
Just
no
a
option.
firm.
Why do you ask? Why do you ask? All those things, because in a no, you can have, in one word, you can have a story. Depends how you say it, the tone, and it's just amazing, the speed of the word and how people communicate on their body language. So I can't really bring everything, but the no was bad. The no was harsh. It was a harsh no, right? So 2 days later, we're discussing some stuff here at the end of the day, and we talk about this book that we're going to talk about next week, right? And a really nice book. And he goes to me and says, "Man, I really have to read that book, because that no, we never talk about that no again. That no has bothered me so much. That no, the no of petting a dog has bothered me so much. So I'm not judging him, because it happens to us, but some things are silent in our minds for so long time. For some people, it could be for 2 days or 2 years or 20 years.
Exactly.
There's some people that are anchored to these frustrations of things that you got rejected, and you were not accepted you're now 45. You were not accepted in engineering school or business school at Yale. You're still holding back to that, right? You're looking back and say, "Man, what could I have been? Who could I have been today? And my dream was not accomplished." So you can keep on building on that rejection, which was a technical rejection. You bring it home and make it so personal. So how much it affects you, it depends on you, right? So I'm going back to the dog example. You see, I'm going also to the university example, which can affect you for 20 years. So the rejection is so personal. And if you make it personal, actually, not personal, if you make it personal, you ruin the possibility to learn from that rejection. So go ahead.
Exactly. And two thoughts that pop to mind when you're saying that. One is trying to open up the reason as to why you're getting rejected, to get an answer for it. Because for this example, my mind, because I'm removed from it, so I can look at this objectively, and I can see the story, and I can see how that rejection would really hurt, because it's very harsh, right? And there's no explanation. And so that could be, viewing from the one side, that could be a really hard thing to take. Viewing it from the other side, for example, maybe that man, maybe it's a training dog, for example, and it's in training for you know, whatever reason. It's going to help people in a wheelchair or blind people or something like that, right? Or maybe the dog, when somebody wants to pet it, maybe it has a really bad mannerism. Maybe it wants to bite them or something like that, right? And so there could be, maybe there isn't, but there could be a very logical reason that with a little bit of explanation for either side. So Edwin, you know, the gentleman saying, hey, listen, is there a reason why I can't pet the dog? You know, I'm very friendly, whatever. Or for this gentleman to say, no, because of this, this, and this reason, or just this one reason, whatever, I would appreciate if you didn't pet my dog. So there's two sides of the story, right? Two sides of the coin.
Right.
And so there's a possibility it was very legitimate as to why he wasn't able to pet the dog, right? Maybe it wasn't. Maybe the guy just was having a bad day and just didn't want him to pet the dog, right? That's a possibility. But I think finding a reason as to why the rejection is happening
helps you.
A lot of the time will help you resolve it right there, right? And so that's kind of the two sides is
rationalizing it.
Yeah, rationalizing and finding maybe a questioning on your side, or maybe ultimately getting an answer from their side. Maybe you can kind of discuss it and get to the resolution of it, because rejection, you know, we've all been rejected in many things in life, right? And like you say, there are things that people get rejected, you know, myself and you, anybody else, where we hold on to these things and they can really affect us. You know, a lot of people that they're going to counseling 20, 30 years later, and
yes,
it comes out as to, you know, I was rejected, whether it was a parent rejection,
you know,
a colleague, a date,
you know,
like you said, at a school, whatever, or just rejected to pet the dog, whatever it was. It can be big or small, and then you can see how those things perpetuate over the years, and how you can actually grow them into something very, very big if they're not resolved right away. So, you know, I think one thing that people should think about is don't take it personally, if possible, right? It's very, very difficult, but try and see the other side of the story and say, you know what, maybe that person had a legitimate reason as to why they rejected this, whatever it was, and leave it at that. Because if you couldn't, because for this example, right, he didn't want to pursue it. He didn't want to push and say, well, why can't I pet your dog, right? So the gentleman is gone, the dog is gone, that situation's over. He's not going to run around, you know, 2 days later after he's been thinking about this and go find the gentleman with the dog. That's not going to happen. So what he can do is he can say, you know what, maybe there was a really legitimate reason why I wasn't allowed to pet that dog. Maybe it was because, you know, he looks very friendly, but you reach out to touch him and he'll bite my hand. Or maybe because he's in training and it's very, you know, strict training, and so he's not allowed to get pet, or, you know, something like that, right? And then whether that rationale is true or not, he can say, okay, I can see the other person's perspective. Maybe that reason is valid, maybe it's not, but I'm going to allow that to let it go, and I'm going to let that rejection go. Right?
Yeah, there you go. So you can summarize it that maybe I should be thankful about this rejection. So maybe I should be thankful, other than being, you know, coming back with it again and again and again and putting me down. You know, but there's some circumstances that we have mentioned in the world trip that the rejection is just the first sign, and we see that a lot in sales. It's the first little sign that you have to work a little bit harder, and we have this friction of work, right? People. Even the good workers, they want to avoid the harder path. So you want to do some shortcuts and achieve the results as fast as possible. And we have a good mentality of optimizing resources. We want to be quick and want to close and want to go ahead, right? But maybe it just requires more work, and what you expected to put there is not the required amount of energy that is required to get that what you wanted. So what you need. So this. The rejection is just a stimulus for you to get better at being more creative, working harder, and be more persistent. Exactly. Some situations you have to say, like in that case of the dog, I don't think it will be a situation you say, well, probably there was. You know, go back and say why. There's, you know, every situation is a unique situation. But on the world trip with the fuel supplier, I believe that if I look back, I should have done a better job. You know, I should have prepared for a long period of time. I should have, when they told me it was in the marketing team, I should have found who was in the marketing team and do my homework and actually get connected with the marketing team and go around and try to network there. I didn't do that. I thought about doing it, and I leaned on the signs that it was possible because they gave us good signs. And I was a bit lazy, you know. I don't consider myself lazy, but I thought like, oh, you know, just leave it there and probably it's going to come back. That was the lesson. So the lesson is that you should learn from the lesson. And why did you get rejection? Don't take it personal. And if you take personal, it's going to ruin you either for 1 hour, 2 hours, or 20 years. And that is not good. You know, the effect it has in your brain. And take a positive thing. Think about, oh, probably I should be thankful for that rejection because that door closed. You have those situations so many times in our lives that a door closes, meaning that I bounce back and I go to a little bit to the right or to the left and I find a bigger door, a better door, a better path, right? And I cannot stop if I get hold on that and I spend my energy thinking, why did I get rejected? What happened? That guy was, you know, he was this, and that, and I called him names and all that. My energy should be focused on, let me find a solution, get that out of the way, and next time. So I'm looking forward to read this book, and I like to do an experiment, Misha, you and I, as we do with the negotiation, finding ourselves in situations that we are actually going to get rejected. And do it the other way around.
I think it's fun.
Something that's meaningful, correct, honest, everything with our principles, but it's, you know, the highest chances are that we're going to get rejected. So we get better on it, and we are, especially how we're going to process in our minds. We're going to nurture a path that path is going to get better at dealing with rejections in the future. So I think that those are 3 or 4 ideas that people, if they apply to it, don't get it personal, persist on what is actually worthwhile, and be disciplined on that. And actually, some doors close because you have a better door. So be positive. Don't mingle on those rejections.
I love that. Let's leave it with that. You guys, there's a challenge for you this week. Pick instances, be intentional about instances in your week this week where you get rejected, and either try and negotiate it and find out the reason for the rejection. Maybe there's a good reason, you can resolve it right there, or work through it and say, okay, there's a reason for it. Maybe there's a different door that's going to open, whatever it is, and see if you can learn and grow from that, because I think it is an opportunity. Every rejection is an opportunity to build our character, make us stronger, and make us a better person, and potentially open up new opportunities that we never even dreamt were possible. So we'll leave it with that for you guys. Hope you guys have an amazing week. I hope you're very productive, and we're going to talk to you guys on the next video. See you later. Bye.
See you later.